It was still a tense security environment.
Right. We're in something much different today. I think we're all in agreement, just given the amount of arms
No
and so
argument
forth going in. So, is part of the president's message at this summit that 2% is in the rearview mirror, that the NATO allies are going to have to be spending significantly more than that, maybe double that, for some countries, some larger economies? Or is he going to stay away from numbers? I know it's politically sensitive with all of them. You mentioned the word win. I was wondering how you're defining that.
Okay, there's a lot there. The president's not going to set a new bar or a new level of GDP spending on defense here at this summit. The goal is 2%. It was a commitment everybody made 10 years ago. Not everybody's there. Most of the remaining nations that haven't reached 2%, most of them, not all, are working on it and are getting there. And so I think the president wants to focus on that. Wants to laud and commemorate those who have, but also make it clear that those who haven't still have some work to do. On win, I think we've been consistent about this. I mean, at least I think I have. I mean, we want all of Ukraine's sovereign territory respected, which means we want no Russian forces in any part of Ukraine by the internationally recognized boundaries.
John, you just said, answering a question to Zeke, you're not picking up on signs of allies needing reassurances when it comes to President Biden. But the allies also look for a secure United States. Have you heard any conversations from the allies about issues of the elections process here, what they've been seeing, and the stability of the United States in the next few months, couple of years, etc.?
I'm not aware of any specific conversations with respect to our domestic political situation. But look, April, we watch the domestic political situation of our allies and partners, of course, like we did with the UK and with France over the weekend, and we have no doubt that they're watching ours as well, and that they'll be watching our election with a lot of keen interest. We certainly would expect that. But I'm not aware of any conversations that we've had at senior levels here, at the NSC or elsewhere at the White House, from allies specifically about this particular election.
The European Union, who gathered reporters a couple of years ago with concerns about democracy here?
They might be talking to y'all, but I'm not aware of any specific conversations here.
Just want to circle back, Admiral, on Ed's question. So you said broadly that the president, in your view, is not represented by what was on the debate stage. Then you gave us an anecdote about a meeting today where he was engaged and so forth. Are you saying you have never encountered a situation where you thought that he was displaying any of those symptoms or affectations or something that would give pause, or are you just declining to answer one way or another?
Well, I'm a little uncomfortable answering these kinds of questions because as a spokesman, my job is to be an advisor and counselor, and I don't think it's appropriate for a spokesman to... yeah, I did because I wanted to make it clear. So, yes, I'm uncomfortable with these kinds of questions, but to answer your specific question, in my experience, the last 2.5 years, I have not seen any reason whatsoever to question or doubt his lucidity, his grasp of context, his probing nature, and the degree to which he is completely in charge of facts and figures. And if he isn't, what I've seen is, because it happened to me this morning, when he isn't and when I can't be in command of those facts and figures, I have to fess up and go get the information that he's asking for. And he asked me some questions this morning I didn't have answers for.
Okay, Nadia. Thank you, Karine. 2 questions on the Middle East. Israel has conducted the largest seizure of land in the West Bank, which undermines the president's vision for two-state solution. So why the White House has been mum on that, and will the president...
It's not that we've been mum. There was a statement put out by the State Department about this call for settlements. Nothing's changed about our view that settlements continue to be counterproductive to peace and stability and the possibility of a two-state solution. We don't support that.
Okay, and second, you mentioned about the Ukraine and Russia in terms of the civilian casualties. The UN said today that actually half of the facilities of UNRWA has been hit and 520 people have been killed in addition to the aid workers. So do you still believe that Israel is doing what it takes to protect civilian lives, including women and children?
We certainly believe that they need to continue to do more to protect innocent civilian life.
Yeah, but they're not doing much. I mean, I've been asking this question for 9 months.
Your question wasn't about what they're doing or not doing. Your question was, do we believe that they should do more? And my answer is yes, well, they need to do more to protect civilian life. And we're going to continue to have conversations with them about how they're prosecuting these operations.
Thanks, John. Just sticking with the Middle East, but connecting it to the other big story. During the ABC News interview on Friday, George Stephanopoulos asked the President, was he, quote, the same man today that you were when you took office 3.5 years ago? And the President's reply began, in terms of successes, yes, I was also the guy who put together a peace plan for the Middle East that may be coming to fruition. Now, it may or may not be coming to fruition, we don't know. We do know 38,000 people have been killed in Gaza, almost 2 million displaced, and according to UNICEF, 1 in 3 children under the age of 2 is suffering from acute malnutrition. Does the President consider his Gaza policy a success?
The President believes wholeheartedly that this ceasefire proposal that we are trying to get done will make a big difference in terms of not only temporarily ceasing hostilities, but potentially giving us an opening to end this conflict. It's important to remember how this started, and you talked about our Gaza policy. I'll state it for you again. We want to make sure Israel has a right to defend itself from the kinds of attacks it suffered on the 7th of October, which I know is easy for people to forget. 1,200 people slaughtered, most at a music festival. Number 2, that Israel is doing everything they can to protect innocent civilian life. Is it enough? No. They need to continue to do more. And that we are doing everything we can to give humanitarian assistance into the people of Gaza. That's our Gaza policy. And as the President has also said, we would be and will still continue to be willing to adjust the policies that we are executing with respect to Gaza as we see things unfold on the ground.
But the broader question was, does he consider his policy to have been successful?
Israel is defending itself against a terrorist attack, so we can check that off. Humanitarian assistance continues to flow. In fact, if it wasn't for the United States, I dare say that not a fraction of the humanitarian assistance that is getting into Gaza would get in. Is it enough? No. And the Israelis have taken some steps to be more precise, more discriminate, and more careful in their operations. Is it enough? No. So we're going to keep at it. We're going to keep working on this.
Is it enough? No. The President described Israel as bombing, indiscriminate bombing in December. 7 months have passed and you have paused 1 arms shipment, as I understand. Is that fair?
That's right. Is there a question here?
Do you think that that's an effective response to indiscriminate bombing of a civilian population?
It's never right to be conducting indiscriminate bombing of a civilian population. That's why we continue to work with the Israelis to be more precise, to be more careful.
All right, just a couple more. Go ahead, Michael.
Sorry. Hi, Admiral. Can I just start with the Middle East as well? Hamas has accused Netanyahu of putting obstacles in the way of the ceasefire deal that is being talked about now. Does the US think that Netanyahu's government is doing everything it can to secure the ceasefire deal?
We're working hard to get that ceasefire deal in place. I'm not going to negotiate here in public or talk about who's saying what and who's doing what. We have seen both sides now, as Andrea rightly asked in her question. We've seen both sides come out with some public statements with respect to the text. The last thing I'm going to do is get into bartering here. We're trying to close those gaps as best we can. We wouldn't have sent the CIA director or Brett McGurk to Cairo if we didn't believe it was worth a shot and worth a chance. I would also add that on both sides, you see public comments that aren't necessarily fully reflective of the conversations that we're having with privately with them or their interlocutors.
Secondly, just on Ukraine, there was a bit of an information battle over the weekend. The Russians said that they destroyed 2 Ukrainian Patriot missile systems. The Ukrainians said that they were decoys. Does the US have its own independent evaluation of what happened during that strike? And what is the state of Ukraine's air defense system when it comes to Patriot missile systems?
Yes, we do. I'm not going to talk about it. And I think you're going to hear more here this week about what the Allies and the United States are going to do to continue to bolster Ukrainian air defense. Look, I know we get hung up on the Patriots, and I get that. There has been contributions of Patriot systems by other nations. We talked about how we're resequencing some of our deliveries of Patriot interceptors from some countries, now diverting them to Ukraine. We're doing that. Other nations are also trying to contribute Patriots. But let's not get caught up on just one system. There's short range, there's medium range, and there's long range air defense, and Ukraine needs all of it. And again, I think you're going to see this week the Allies really stepping up and showing that they're willing to continue to provide those kinds of capabilities.
Go ahead, Josh.
John, Viktor Orban is visiting China right now on the heels of a visit to Russia. I'm wondering whether the U.S. has any views on that and what impact it might have on the situation in Ukraine.
Yeah, we're concerned about it. It certainly doesn't seem to be productive in terms of trying to get things done in Ukraine and trying to move forward to achieve this just peace that President Zelensky continues to work hard, and we continue to try to operationalize. But yeah, it's concerning.
Was there any advance notification given to the U.S. of either trip, Russia?
No, that I'm aware of.
Can I try one more time on irreversible? Does the U.S.
Yes,
have a
you can
position?
try.
Does the U.S. have a position on the inclusion of that word?
Our position is that NATO is going to be in Ukraine's future. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to get to that point, and the president's looking forward to talking to President Zelensky and our NATO allies about that path, that bridge to NATO.
Anita. Thank you so much, John. A question on Ukraine and one on Iran. Starting with Ukraine and this Russian rocket attack that killed 30 people at the largest children's hospital. Does this shift the U.S.'s position on not allowing Ukraine to strike directly at Russian airfields that originated these attacks?
Shift the position.
Yes. Make you change your mind about not allowing that, and how do you justify not giving Ukraine permission to attack?
There's been no change in our policy. You saw that the president several weeks ago gave guidance to Ukraine that they can use U.S. supplied weapons to strike targets just over the border. That's still the case.
On Iran, we've heard the U.S. say that this presidential election was not free and fair, that they have doubts that this is going to change anything meaningfully, but we've also heard the U.S. say that they will negotiate or do diplomacy with Iran when it serves our national interests. So is the U.S. now ready to resume nuclear talks, other talks, or make any diplomatic moves with Iran in light of this new president?
No.
Okay, Ariel. I'm sorry. No, can you elaborate, please?
Well, it seemed like a pretty easy question to answer. No, we're not in a position where we're willing to get back to the negotiating table with Iran just based on the fact that they've elected a new president. They're still supporting terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. They're still supporting the Houthis as the Houthis attack ships in the Red Sea. They're still attacking shipping as well. And they're still supplying drones and drone technology and drone expertise to the Russians so that the Russians can continue to kill innocent Ukrainians like they did over the weekend. So no.
A bit more moderate. Do you see any opening?
We'll see what this guy wants to get done, but we are not expecting any changes in Iranian behavior, sadly.
We got Ariel. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. John, this morning the president said that France rejected extremism during the latest parliamentary election and expressed his confidence that the United States would also do so. So France has a very different electoral system, as you know, so why this optimism from the president? And more broadly, was there a sense of relief in the administration that the election turned out the way it did?
I think it's pretty clear from the election that the far right didn't find the purchase that it wanted to find, and that compromise in a democracy is going to have to still be the watchword in France as it is here in the United States. And it's not going to change our strong relationship with France. It's not going to change the fact that France is a valued NATO ally. And the president's looking forward to continuing to work with President Macron and the entire team.
All right, last question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Karine. Thank you, Admiral. I was just wondering, with the renewed spotlight and scrutiny on President Biden in public settings this week, how he's preparing for the NATO summit, how you guys are deciding how many questions to take at the press conference.
You gotta ask the press secretary that one.
You're the one who's prepping him for a lot of this on matters of national security and foreign policy.
So am I.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a team effort.
I will let Karine talk about the press conference, the big boy press conference I think y'all are planning to have. But he has already had discussions with his national security team in the lead up to the summit, as you might expect that he would. He's reviewing material. He's doing his homework and getting ready. He's got the first major set of remarks tomorrow night at the Mellon Auditorium. He's working his way through those remarks, as you would expect him to do. And he's getting ready for at least the 2 bilateral meetings that we know he's going to have specifically with the new Prime Minister of the UK and with President Zelensky later in the week. So what I have seen from my perch is the normal amount of preparatory work that he does before a major international conference. They're no different than how he prepared for the G7 or for the events in Normandy or previous international fora. So it's pretty typical from what I've seen.
And do you expect Vice President Harris to play a role in the events this week or to take any meetings during the time that she'll be in
I
Washington?
can't speak for the Vice President's staff and team, but I can have them get back to you about what her schedule is going to look like.
Thank you so much, Admiral.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Admiral. Okay, well, all the debate questions have been answered. Press conference answered. Let me close my book and get out of here. Hi, Zeke.
Thanks, Karine. My first to you is on the credibility of this White House when it comes to talking about the president's health. When you were here last Tuesday, you were asked if the president had had any medical examinations since his physical in February or that included the time period after the debate. You said flatly no. 3 days later, you admitted the president had a quote, short check-in with the medical team thereafter. I mean, those are 2 very different answers.
No. Actually, if you were to listen to I think I did a 30-minute gaggle on Friday, 30 minutes with I think it was with the pool, and I said he did not have a medical. I cleared it up. You're right. You're correct. I said he didn't. I still stand, but he didn't have a medical exam. I said that in the gaggle, and you're right. I said that in the briefing. He had a check-in with, and he said this on Friday. He had a check-in with his medical doctor, which is something that he does a couple times a week, as you know, and I stated this as well. He has, for those who don't know, obviously outside of the briefing room, outside of the White House, many Americans don't actually understand this, so let's take a step back. They deal with their medical issues or physicals very, very differently. They are they are lucky if they get to see their doctor once or twice a year, right? They have to get in a car, they have to either take public transportation in order to make that happen. The president's medical unit is literally down on the other side of the colonnade, is just down the steps from the residence, and so a couple times a week he does a check-in, a verbal check-in with his doctor while he's exercising. That is something that happens often. Matter of fact, he did a check-in today because I know folks were going to ask about if he was tested for COVID. He was not. We are following CDC guidance. He was not tested for COVID, just to let you guys know about that one. And if he has any symptoms, obviously we would test him.
Is that in the context of the second gentleman's diagnosis?
Yes, which is why. No. It's in context of the second gentleman. But to answer your point, he did not have a medical exam. He did not have a physical. He did do like a verbal check-in with his doctor a couple days after the debate, and it was very quick. It was a couple of words that were spoken to each other, and that's how we were able to give you that answer. But he did not have a medical exam. He did not have a physical.
You said no, though, last Tuesday. Did you know about that verbal check-in, or did we just not ask him a precise enough question?
So the line of questions that I was getting that day was, in the way that I was hearing the question, was about the medical exam. I answered MJ's question when she asked me medical exam, and I answered and I said no, physical, and then somebody else asked me, was there a check-in? I did not mean to steer anybody wrong. I was still thinking about the medical exam. I was still thinking about the physical. That's how I answered the question. And then when it became, when the president actually spoke to it, I went back, asked the medical doctor, and he said they had a verbal check-in. That's what he said. But in answering the question, I was talking about the medical exam. I was talking about the physical.
And then two quick ones. There's been a lot of reporting in the last 24 hours about a Parkinson's expert who's come to visit the White House almost a dozen times over the last year or so, including at least one meeting with the president's physician. Could you state, like, very clearly, yes or no, was that expert here to participate in anything surrounding the care of the President of the United States?
So let me just say a couple of things. We have had a comprehensive, and I just want to take another step back, comprehensive physical examination. The President has had that. We've given a comprehensive report. We've shared that the past 3 years. Every year that he has Every year that he has had this exam, he sees a neurologist. And just to give you a quote from that, from the report most recently in February, an extremely detailed neurological exam was again reassuring in that there were no findings which would be consistent with any cerebellar or other central neurological disorder such as a stroke, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, or ascending lateral sclerosis, end quote. So that came directly from in February in that comprehensive report that was provided by the president's doctor to me that I share with all of you. So anyone who is watching can certainly go to our website.
Which was this expert's visits, was multiple visits to the White House pertaining at all to the president's
Well,
care?
here's the thing. I've said he has had three. He has had three physicals. In those 3 physicals, that's when he has seen a specialist, a neurological specialist. I have to be super mindful here, and this is why, and I'll explain this to you in a second. There are thousands of military personnel who come onto this White House. Many of them get the care